From the headquarters of Telesur English in Caracas, Venezuela, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We begin in New York City, where Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel participated at a social event at the Riverside Church in Harlem, Manhattan, following the second day of the United Nations General Assembly. Let's hear more from that event.
Justamente aquí, esa noche recordó Fidel que en su primera visita a la ONU en 1960, él personalmente le había dicho a sus compañeros: me voy a Harlem porque ahí están mis mejores amigos.
That night, in this very place, Fidel recalled that in his first visit to the UN in 1960, he had personally told his comrades, I'm going to Harlem because that's where my best friends are.
Y hoy aquí queremos recordar con ustedes que precisamente de esa visita en el año 60 se cumplen hoy 58 años que Fidel alzó su voz en la ONU para denunciar la agresión a Cuba por parte de Estados Unidos.
And I really wanted to share with you that today we're marking the 58th anniversary of that first visit of Fidel to the UN when he raised his voice in order to denounce the aggressions against Cuba by the United States.
Cuba no es un país grande ni poderoso, ni rico en recursos naturales o financieros. Pero esas limitaciones no nos han impedido practicar la solidaridad sobre la base de compartir no lo que nos sobra, sino lo que tenemos, pero ante todo compartir nuestro esfuerzo y nuestro sacrificio. Se trata de un sacrificio solidario practicado con humildad y que ha tenido un impacto al cabo de varias décadas en la vida de millones de personas de varios continentes.
Cuba is not a large or powerful country, not rich in natural or financial resources. But these limitations have not prevented us from practicing solidarity on the basis of sharing what we have, not giving away our leftovers, but actually sharing what we have. But above all, sharing our efforts and our sacrifice. It's a sacrifice in solidarity, which is practiced with humility and which has had an impact over several decades on the lives of millions of people in several continents.
Por eso cuando Cuba viene a la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas y promueve la cooperación y la solidaridad frente a la amenaza, la competencia, el racismo y el egoísmo, lo hace con la autoridad de un pueblo que demostró que tales propósitos son posibles y que convirtió las declaraciones en acciones concretas.
This is why when Cuba comes to the United Nations General Assembly and promotes cooperation and solidarity, as opposed to threats, competition, racism, and selfishness, Cuba does so with the authority of a people that has shown that it is possible to achieve those goals, and a country that have turned words into concrete actions.
Hours before, Cuba's President Miguel Díaz-Canel delivered his first speech at the UN General Assembly. He used the platform to call on the United States to end the blockade against the island nation and said that this is the main obstacle for the two countries to normalize their ties. Díaz-Canel also criticized the continuous threats from the United States towards Venezuela of a possible military intervention.
The potential for a smooth, fluent business relationship is well known, and a genuine and respectful understanding would be in the best interest of the entire region. However, the essential and defining element of the bilateral relationship continues to be the blockade, which seeks to suffocate the Cuban economy in order to bring about hardships and disrupt our constitutional order. It is a cruel policy, punishing Cuban families and the entire nation.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro also addressed the assembly. Maduro said the United States wants to dominate the world, which is not healthy for international peace relations. He re-emphasized that he is willing to meet with U.S. President Donald Trump.
I learned that some journalists had asked President Donald Trump if he was willing to meet with Maduro. That's how they call me. Nicolás Maduro, the president of Venezuela. Apparently, President Donald Trump said in one of his answers today that if this would help Venezuela, he was willing to do so. Well, from this stage, I say and I ratify, regardless of the big historical differences that we've had, regardless of the differences in ideology, regardless of our social differences, I am a worker, a bus driver, a man of the people. I'm not a billionaire. Regardless of all these differences that could be considered as enormous, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, is willing, I am willing, to shake the hands of President of the United States and speak with him about the differences of our countries and the matters of our region, and so they be considered. This is what I believe. To think about the political control in Venezuela. Today, Venezuela is the victim of a continuous attack. On the economic side, Venezuela has been under, during the last 2 years, to a group of measures, unilateral measures, fully legal, of economic persecution, of economic blockade. We have been prevented from using the international exchange currency, the dollar, and their positions of domination from the authorities of the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States. Today, Venezuela cannot trade internationally with dollars. The world was aware of this, that Venezuela is persecuted economically, commercially, financially. Today, Venezuela is under mechanisms of economic sanction which are illegal, unilateral.
President Maduro has had bilateral meetings before his address to the General Assembly. Maduro met with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. They agreed to strengthen ties of friendship and cooperation in defending a multipolar world. The meeting came just a year after the two leaders met in Kazakhstan during the summit of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Maduro also held a meeting with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. They spoke about Venezuela's camaraderie with the Russian people and the government, and also on strengthening ties to work towards the goals of the two nations. Salvador Sánchez Serén, the president of El Salvador, was also among Tuesday evening's speakers at the UN General Assembly. Sánchez Serén spoke on the horrific U.S. policy of separating migrant families.
This year, many of the migrant families, mainly from the northern triangle of Central America, have faced a difficult and painful situation when being separated, which has caused irreparable psychological and emotional damages to children and adolescents. We consider that the children's and family interests must be respected regardless of their migrant status. I reiterated the request by El Salvador to U.S. authorities to speed up the reunification process of children that arrived at the southern border of the country, accompanied or not by their families.
Sánchez Serén also rejected the blockade imposed by the United States on Cuba and Venezuela.
For the international community to progress with a firm step towards developing unilateral measures should end, such as the injustice an anachronic economic, financial and commercial blockade imposed on Cuba by the United States. This measure must end because it generates incalculable damage to the Cuban people. The economic blockade against the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, which affect its international payment and buying goods and services, which damage the living conditions of the population. We respect the self-determination and the sovereignty of the Venezuelan people, and we reject any external interference and threat of military intervention.
At the Security Council meeting, Bolivia's President Evo Morales condemned U.S. interference in the Middle East. Morales criticized the U.S. policies against Iran, and he also rejected any attempt of intervention in Venezuela.
Bolivia categorically condemns the unilateral actions imposed by the government of the United States of America against Iran. Likewise, we condemn the fact that the United States has withdrawn from the JCPOA, hiding behind pretexts to continue its policy of interference and meddling in the internal affairs of this brother country, Iran.
Namibian President Hage Geingob called for the immediate lifting of the blockade against Cuba during his turn at the podium. Geingob hailed Cuba as a long-standing friend who stood with the people of Namibia during their darkest days. He added its government and people played a decisive role in the liberation of his country. This especially in the Battle of Quito-Cuanavale, which led to negotiations and the eventual independence. Coming up, more stories. We'll be back.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. In between sessions at the United Nations General Assembly, Telesur's Jorge Gestoso sat down with Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves. In this exclusive interview, he said U.S. President Donald Trump has a very narrow sense of patriotism. Let's listen to him.
How can you intervene? What are the circumstances under which you can intervene in another sovereign state's internal affairs? There's a matter of self-defense. If you are going hot pursuit in relation to self-defense, if there's an egregious breach of international law, like for example, the matter of genocide taking place, or if you have a system of government based on the separation of races, as in South Africa. In those circumstances, international law would justify an intervention on the basis of a resolution at the Security Council. You just can't go off on your own, on a whim and saying, well, look, this government is against, I don't like this government. This government is acting contrary to our interests, or this government is incompetent, or there are some humanitarian issues which have arisen. No, what sort of a world would we have? It means, therefore, that if black people have been shot in Ferguson or anywhere in the United States, or there's an incompetent government anywhere in the United States, or you have poverty in the Appalachia or in certain areas of urban America, that doesn't justify anybody to intervene in the United States of America. They have their institutions to address those questions, and people in the respective countries must be allowed to address these matters for themselves, by themselves.
In other news, the International Monetary Fund has boosted a loan approved for Argentina to 57 billion US dollars. The IMF's head, Christine Lagarde, announced an agreement reached for an additional $7 billion in a press conference from the Argentinian consulate in New York City. An early release was also agreed and will happen between now and the end of 2019. Thousands of people in Argentina have been on strike this week against the government's austerity policies and the deal with the IMF.
Central objective of Argentina's plan and a key priority for the IMF remains protecting the most vulnerable people in Argentina during this economic transition. In this context, I am pleased to see a firm commitment to the expansion of social protections under the authorities' strengthened policy plan. The fund remains fully committed to helping Argentina tackle the challenges that it faces. It is the largest ever program that the IMF is putting together.
And our correspondent in Buenos Aires, Edgardo Esteban, brings us the latest on this matter.
This afternoon, there was a new development of the IMF's negotiation and an extension of credit. The announcement was delivered at the meeting in New York by the head of the IMF, Christine Lagarde, and Argentine Finance Minister Nicolás Dujovne. The reality is that now more than $57 billion will be given by the IMF this year and $22.4 billion in 2019. Argentina is headed towards an electoral campaign, and President Mauricio Macri is facing strong criticisms and declining approval. Argentina continues to enter into higher debts as the country's economic challenge deepens. If the government begins to respond to the demands of the IMF moving forward, the backlash by the citizens on social, economic, and political levels will increase. In particular, as the most vulnerable sectors of the country begin to see more cuts and a greater recession. Argentina has recently faced increased uncertainty with everything from protests to unrest to other forms of demonstrations. This will continue if things don't change, according to the workers' unions.
That was Edgardo Esteban from Argentina. Women have marched in Sao Paulo against presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro. They denounced sexism and an attack on women's rights in Brazil.
Women have marched in Sao Paulo to reject the presidential candidacy of far-right politician Jair Bolsonaro.
We consider that former President Dilma Rousseff was the victim of several sexist and misogynist attacks. We are also saying our rights under attack, especially our workers' rights. Women are those who suffer the most precarious in the job market. We women earn less than men.
One of the members of the Facebook group Women United Against Bolsonaro was attacked just outside her house by 3 men. The group has over 3 million followers.
We are organizing over 200 events to protest against Bolsonaro. Several women have their social media hacked or have even been threatened. There is a clear demonstration that they don't want women in the streets showing their political opinion.
The march was headed by Ana Estela Haddad, wife of Workers' Party candidate Fernando Haddad. Vice presidential candidate Manuela Dávila joined her.
We represent half of Brazil. There is no development project in our country that considers women are an important part of any project.
Fernando Haddad joined the demonstrations by the end. He assured that women will be at the center of his government program.
I want to commit with you. We will implement it until the last consequences. This will be healthy for all. A balanced society is a peace society.
Brazil is in the final stretch towards presidential elections. Bolsonaro remains first on the polls, but women demonstrations can materialize in ballot boxes as they shout, "Sexism will not pass."
Mexico's President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he will set up a commission to investigate the disappearance of the 43 Ayotzinapa students 4 years ago.
El día 1 de diciembre.
On December 1st, we will issue a decree to create an investigating commission if it has not been done yet. We will define the entire procedure we are going to carry out until we reach truth and justice.
Crear también.
We'll take a short break, but stay with us.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn has vowed to campaign against racism in the UK during his speech at the party's conference in Liverpool. Corbyn criticized Prime Minister Theresa May and her hard take on immigration, especially over the Windrush scandal of Caribbean immigrants threatened with deportation. Another topic of Corbyn was his promise to recognize a Palestinian state as soon as his party takes office. He also referred to public services, the national health system, jobs, housing, and climate change. Thousands have marched in Bethlehem to support Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas and his upcoming speech at the United Nations General Assembly and protest the end of U.S. aid to the country. Demonstrators unveiled a large UNRWA ID card carrying the name of Abbas as a symbol of the Palestinian people and their right of return. Abbas is expected to speak at the UN General Assembly on Thursday. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency, UNRWA, is facing a funding crisis after U.S. President Donald Trump withdrew all support for the organization, which provides critical aid to 5 million Palestinian refugees.
Our message to the American administration today is clear for all Palestinian people and the society of the Bethlehem Governorate. It's a message of anger and protest against the American administration and its partner decisions with the Israeli occupation. It is also a message for support to President Abbas, and we stand with him in the UN, and we are with him in his political agenda.
Xiao Leji, a senior official of the Communist Party of China, has mourned the passing of Vietnamese President Tran Dai Quang in Hanoi. The event was commissioned by the Secretary General of the Communist Party of China, President Xi Jinping. Xiao conveyed condolence to the late president's family on behalf of the Chinese government and the Chinese people. Tran Dai Quang passed away on Friday after a serious illness when he was 61 years old. And a fire dragon has danced its way through Hong Kong, bringing wishes of luck and good health to neighbors. An ornate straw dragon stuffed with hundreds of incense sticks has paraded in the Pok Fulam village. This is part of a traditional celebration of Mid-Autumn Festival, or the Festival of the Harvest. Lights, smoke, and colors engulf the village in a ritual aimed at chasing away plagues, which goes back hundreds of years. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find all the latest information, the most important topics that were discussed at the UN General Assembly, as we discussed earlier today. So take a look. You can also find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the